In the movie Thunderstruck, a 16-year-old boy named Brian gets basketball powers from his favorite player Kevin when he shakes hands with him. He starts playing really well, but on the other hand, Kevin plays really bad after that. Keep watching to know what happens next. At the start of the story, there was a 16-year-old boy named Brian who dreamed of becoming a basketball player. Even though he worked hard, he couldn't join his school's team, the Eagles. Instead, he was given the job of carrying towels and water bottles for the players. One day, Brian met his favorite player, Kevin, who scored many points by putting the ball in the net. Brian was amazed by Kevin's skills and promised himself that he would become a great player like him. Excited by his goal, Brian started practicing, but each time he tried to score, he failed and fell badly. Meanwhile, after Kevin's team won the game, reporters and fans crowded around him, but his agent, Alan, helped him escape the crowd. The next day at school, Brian was talking to his best friend, Mitch, when he saw a new girl named Isabel. Seeing her made Brian's heart race, and he couldn't stop smiling. Isabel noticed and smiled back at him. Later during lunch, Brian kept looking at her, and Mitch warned him not to be crazy about Isabel because everyone at school thought he was a loser. But Brian told Mitch that Isabel didn't know that because she was new, and he decided to talk to her soon. Then, a troublemaker named Connor played a video on the cafeteria TV. The video showed Brian trying to jump like Kevin using a trampoline, but he got stuck in the net. Everyone started laughing and making fun of Brian, which embarrassed him deeply. He quietly walked away, and Isabel felt really bad for him. Later, when Brian sat at home feeling sad, his father came in and handed him 2 tickets to a basketball game as a gift. Seeing the tickets, Brian jumped with excitement. Soon, he went to watch the game with his father. Brian was thrilled to see his favorite player, Kevin, playing amazingly on the court. During the break, the host announced that someone from the audience would get a chance to shoot a basketball. When they called out the winner, it turned out to be Brian's father. However, instead of taking the shot himself, he gave Brian the chance to fulfill his dream. When Brian got to the court, the host explained that if he made the shot, he would win $20,000. But then, Brian noticed the same boy from school standing in the corner, holding a camera to record him. Nervously, Brian threw the ball, but it missed the basket and hit the team's mascot instead. Embarrassed, Brian was walking away when he unexpectedly ran into Kevin. Kevin encouraged him, and even gave him an autograph on a basketball. Brian couldn't hold back his excitement after meeting his favorite player. He told Kevin that he wished he had the same talent. Kevin smiled and told Brian that hard work can beat talent. Then, Kevin handed Brian a basketball, and suddenly, an energy seemed to pass from Kevin into Brian. The next morning, when Brian woke up, he heard on the radio that after the break, Kevin played terribly, and his team ended up losing the game. Brian felt a bit sad when he heard that, but he got ready and went to school. In the evening, Brian and his friend Mitch went to a fair where Connor and Isabel were also there. Connor was trying to win a big teddy bear for Isabel by making a basket, but no matter how many times he tried, he failed. Seeing this, Brian and Mitch started laughing loudly. Connor got angry and threw the ball to Brian, telling him to give it a shot. At first, Brian thought he might embarrass himself, but when he threw the ball, it went right into the hoop. Everyone was shocked, thinking it was just a lucky shot. But then, Brian amazed everyone by making several baskets in a row. Connor walked away in anger, and after winning the teddy bear, Brian gave it to Isabel. They shook hands and began to explore the fair together. Meanwhile, Kevin was practicing basketball, but he struggled to make his shots. This made both him and his agent, Alan, feel upset because Kevin had played very poorly in the last game. Alan told Kevin that everyone has tough days. On the other hand, Brian practiced at home and noticed that his skills had improved a lot overnight. The next day at school, Brian arrived at the court wearing a basketball jersey. The coach told him that he was just holding weights and asked why the other kids wore jerseys. Brian said he wanted to be part of the team. At first, the coach turned him down, but when Brian kept asking, the coach decided to give him a chance to show what he could do. Brian had to compete against Connor, the team captain. Brian made his shots so easily that everyone was surprised and began to wonder what he could do. Then, the coach challenged him, but Brian defeated him as well. Happy with Brian's skills, the coach finally added him to the team. In the following days, Brian played many games against other school teams, and his team won. Soon, he became popular in the school, and many students wanted to be his friend. Brian also grew closer to Isabel, and they both fell in love. Meanwhile, Kevin's performance got worse every day, and he faced criticism from the media. Alan tried everything to help Kevin. He even called Kevin's mother to motivate him, but sadly it didn't work. Later, while Alan was watching TV, he saw Kevin being criticized in the news. When he changed the channel, he found a story about Brian, who was gaining attention as the next Kevin Darren because of his talent. Alan remembered that 4 weeks ago, Brian could hardly make a basket, let alone shoot from far away. He watched videos of Brian's games and noticed that Brian played just like Kevin. This made Alan wonder if Kevin's talent had somehow transferred to Brian. He then told Kevin about his thoughts, explaining that Brian, who once handed out towels to players, had now become the best player in the junior tournament. However, Kevin didn't believe Alan and thought he was losing his mind from the shock. The next day, Alan took Kevin to Brian's school and introduced him to Brian. He made them shake hands, hoping to get Kevin's skills back. Alan suggested they spend the whole day together, since they were both great basketball players. Brian and Kevin talked a lot and had lunch together. However, even after being together all day, their skills did not switch, which made Alan very unhappy. During the matches, Brian became arrogant and played by himself without passing the ball to his teammates. He kept scoring points, and even though his team won, his friends felt upset because basketball is a team game. Meanwhile, Kevin played in a game but couldn't make a single shot. The crowd and the media started to insult him because they had never seen anyone play so poorly. Later that evening, Brian threw a party to celebrate his victory, inviting many kids. Isabel felt unwell because Brian was no longer the nice boy he used to be. He had become full of himself. She suggested they go somewhere private to talk, but Brian didn't want to leave his new cool friends. This made Isabel angry, and she walked away. Soon after, Alan arrived at the party and spoke to Brian. He told Brian that his and Kevin's skills had switched. Brian didn't believe him at all, so Alan asked how he had suddenly become a great basketball player overnight without any practice. He sarcastically wondered if Brian had been practicing in his sleep. Alan asked Brian to give Kevin's skills back, but Brian insisted that he did not take them on purpose. He said that what was done, and he would not return them. Before leaving, Alan warned him that it was wrong to cheat everyone by misusing someone else's talent. The next day at school, the coach gathered the Eagles team and told them they were only one match away from becoming champions. Everyone cheered with joy upon hearing this news. Later, while riding his bicycle, Brian noticed a poster of Kevin. He felt sorry for Kevin because he was playing poorly and everyone was starting to dislike him. Brian decided he would return Kevin's talent. He called Alan and shared his decision. After that, both of them went to the basketball court where Kevin was practicing. Brian and Alan told Kevin they wanted to give his powers back, but Kevin was not ready to accept it. However, when Brian demonstrated his skills, especially by performing Kevin's signature move, Kevin was a bit surprised. They tried hard to exchange their powers by holding the same ball and saying the same words, but nothing happened. This left all three of them very upset. Later, Brian visited Isabel's house and apologized to her. Although she was still angry, she forgave him and invited him inside. Brian then shared the whole story about the exchange of powers with Kevin, and Isabel found it hard to believe. To prove it, he showed her the video from that day when his ball hit the mascot. Seeing that, Brian had an idea and ran off. He headed straight to the basketball court where Kevin was playing. He saw that Kevin's team still had a score of 0. Brian quickly entered the court and told Kevin he had found a way to return his powers. He explained that he needed to hit the mascot with the ball, because that was what had happened before. Brian then threw the ball at the mascot, making it fall down. They both grabbed the ball, and Kevin said he wished he had Brian's skill. Brian replied that hard work beats talent, and suddenly, an energy flowed from Brian into Kevin, meaning their plan had worked, and Kevin began to play exceptionally well, hitting shot after shot, which amazed all the spectators. Thanks to Kevin, the team won, and Brian felt very happy. The next day, Brian had his final match, but he knew he wouldn't play well this time. When the match began, he stumbled like before, which made his coach anxious. Then Kevin and Alan showed up, making Brian even more nervous. Remembering Kevin's words about hard work beating talent, Brian gathered his teammates. He admitted he wasn't playing well and told them they needed to work together. With this plan, Brian entered the game with enthusiasm. His team scored well, but with only 10 seconds left, they needed 2 points. When the ball came to Brian, he aimed for 3 points and thankfully made the shot, getting the ball into the basket. Because of Brian's points, they won the match. Everyone lifted Brian onto their shoulders, and Kevin waved goodbye as he left.